Nation's #1 DJ, DJ Rockwell.
Yo, this is Apocalypse, the lyrical warner, hip-hop revelator. And you rockin' with the nation's #1 DJ, DJ Rockwell, you understand me?
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we are in the building. Welcome to the Rockwell Radio Show. This is your brother, the nation's #1 DJ, DJ Rockwell, on a nice day, beautiful day. And we're live with a super important message just for you. We want everybody to go ahead and observe the 3 standing rules of the Rockwell Radio Show. You know what they are. Go ahead and hit that like and share button. Please tag somebody. And above all, make this be the night you subscribe. We've got such an important topic today. And if you're new to the Rockwell Radio Show, this round of applause is for you. Welcome. The Rockwell Radio Show has been on the air just about 2 years. And what we typically cover here on the Rockwell Radio Show, for those of you who watch, you already know the answer. We cover hip hop as it relates to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his star student, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. We cover social justice. We cover what's going on in the street. We cover current events. We cover what's going on with our people in America and all around the world. But we're glad that you're here with us tonight. But do us a favor. And it really, really matters with the algorithm. We want everybody to stop, hit the like button, hit the share button, because tonight we have some really practical information that the world can use. Here's where it came from. On April the 21st, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan addressed the world on a podcast, the Podbean podcast, which is serviced by the believers, the Muslim community that was doing a month-long observation of Ramadan, the Ramadan Prayer Line podcast. And on the first day of the podcast, the minister spoke, and on the last day, which is on the April the 21st, just a few short weeks ago. And it was the words he shared out of a concern, out of passion, out of pain, to talk about what's going on in the Muslim community, but not just stopping there, with all of the believing community, the attacks on place of worship and what we can do. The Nation of Islam has a solution, but we decided not to just stop with our faith tradition. We wanted to reach out because this is a matter that impacts us all. Now, I'm a Black man that grew up in the church, and to this day, I still call church home. I can remember the days of being picked up by my grandmother. We called her Mama Dear. And she would take us to Sunday school. And the way that I learned the Lord's Prayer, I'll never forget, was because of my sweet grandmother. We were children in the back seat on our way to Sunday school. And one day she observed us, me and my brother, saying the latest Run DMC rhyme. And she overheard us, and you know how grandmothers can do, they could drive the car, reach and slap you. And she said these words: if you know that rap, you can learn the Lord's Prayer. And guess what? I did. And when we got to Sunday school, it was there where I met my friends, my playmates, my play cousins. It was there where I can still remember the hard wood. I can still remember the cushions on the seats of the pews. I can still remember the hymnals inside of the area in front of me. I can still remember being small enough where I had to lift up to hear and see above the seat. I remember the smell of the old wood. Church was home. Church was a safe place. Church was a place where we knew that we were safe. Things have changed. Now we live in a time where things are uncertain, where things are not quite what they seem. When today people are losing their lives while in prayer. What can we do? What should we do? What does God require us to do? The minister spoke to that on April the 21st. And later in the program, we're going to hear from that. But first, I want you all to watch this.
This month will mark 3 years since a gunman opened fire at the Tree of Life synagogue, killing 11 people.
Prayer of the day. Individual, when they kneeled down, he lunged forward with a knife and stabbed the imam at least 2 times in his back area.
Entering the Tree of Life synagogue, Pittsburgh SWAT officer Steve Meskin testified he encountered bodies that were unrecognizable and carnage, quote, like nothing I've ever seen.
Everyone was kneeling. The imam made a loud noise. All congregants looked up, and the attacker was running towards the door.
That is the reality in which we live today. Do we sit and watch, or do we take a stand? And if so, how? Today's guest will address that situation. But again, I want everybody to help us here at the Rockwell Radio Show. We're almost at our first 1,000 subs because of you. We need everybody to once again go ahead and hit that like and share button. Please, please, please subscribe today and tag somebody to let them know that you rock with your brother, DJ Rockwell, here at the Rockwell Radio Show. Now, as I said, we don't really talk a lot about these kinds of subjects, but because of the recent stabbing of the imam in Paterson, New Jersey, and because of the minister's passionate and so serious comments on April the 21st, it was worthy that we bring this subject to you because we want you to be safe in your place of worship. I want to go ahead and start introducing my guest. My first guest is a brother I've known for over 20 years. He is now serving in the capacity here at Atlanta Mosque number 15 alongside our student Southern Regional Minister, Student Minister Abu Sharif Muhammad. He works at his behest. He also is pounding the streets. You can find him in the streets of Atlanta serving our people, helping our people, getting the word out and protecting our community via what is known as the 10,000 Fearless. And today, we welcome him back to the Rockwell Radio Show, my brother and yours, Student Minister, Brother Rashaad Sharif Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum.
My brother. Wa alaikum salam, big bro.
How are you, sir?
Fine, brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. Glad to have you back.
Great. Glad to be back. Always glad to be. This is home for me. This is my second home.
Glad to have you, brother. So, Riz, today we're going to cover a serious subject.
Yes, sir.
The minister lit the world and he lit me on fire when he talked about the seriousness of the hour as it relates to protecting our places of worship. And I knew at that point, Brother Rashaad, that we can't just talk to the Muslim community. We had to talk to the Christian community as well.
Yes, sir.
So I reached out. I'm sorry, you want to say something?
No, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. So I reached out to a brother who was also passionate about serving his community. He is a pastor in the Fresno and Los Angeles area. He is the CEO of Believe Radio Fresno.com and Jonathan Archie Ministries. He is a believer. He loves his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and he also loves his people. And he's here to talk about the subject at hand. Please welcome to the Rockwell Radio Show for the first time, my brother, Pastor Jonathan Archie.
Welcome, brothers. Greetings to the both of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Brother, there's no way that I could have covered in depth and detail of your contribution to what you do. So if I can just humbly ask you both, and I'll start with Brother Rashaad, can you just give us maybe a 60-second summary of your work, your ministry, and your service?
Yes, sir. Well, again, I'm Rashaad Sharif Muhammad. I am a student minister under the leadership of Student Minister Abdul Sharif Muhammad, who is the Southern Regional Representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I also assist in the 10,000 Fearless, which is an organization that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called for in 2015. And that the basis for that organization was to stand between the violence and the community. He wanted 10,000 men and women throughout the country to pick up the banner and go to the streets after our people. And what we do here in Atlanta, we feed the hungry. We patrol the streets. We have about 3 or 4 police cruisers. We have buses. We have vans, and we patrol our own communities, because at the end of the day, brother, nobody's going to treat us better than we will treat ourselves.
That's right.
Yes, sir. So that is the basis of our work here in Atlanta and throughout the nation. The 10,000 Fearless has about 100 subports throughout the country. So, yes, sir, we're doing a lot of work, and we're trying to make the word of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan flesh.
Come on, brothers and sisters, you heard it live right here. That's our brother, Student Minister Rashaad Sharif Muhammad. And Brother Pastor, please, if you would.
Well, after such an impressive resume of involvement, I concur as well. I share the same servant leadership heart. I've been in ministry since I was 15. I'm now 50. That's 35 years of ministry. I come from the son of a civil rights activist who was very passionate about making sure that justice was not just ethereal, but something that we could attain and experience. I am involved in giving oversight to 2 churches, Fresno, Los Angeles. Of course, have the radio station, of course, feeding programs weekly, housing programs, dealing with displaced families, battered women and children. It's my life is just a mission, missional in my drive, missional in my thrust and focus, trying to make a difference. And probably unlike most people, I have a very good awareness and understanding and conviction for the success of our people. My Christianity does not define me. I define it by having a very sound and rewarding relationship with God that makes me active and makes me aware of the injustices, and I have to speak to them. So my life is to be a living epistle, a living example of the love of God in the earth.
Brother Pastor Jonathan, we welcome you and we thank you for being here with us. Brother Rashaad, you already know.
Yes, sir.
Brothers, if we can get down to business, and again, we want to invite everyone to go ahead and take that finger and hit that like button, hit that share button, because we got a mission. We have a message that's going to help people. Tag somebody. And again, we're almost at our 1,000 subs. You can help us get over the hump by hitting that subscribe button today. Now, as I mentioned in my introduction, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan delivered a year-long subject entitled "The Time and What Must Be Done." And before we get into the what must be done part of this conversation, because we're definitely going to get into that part, I would like to ask both of you to answer this question: is how would you characterize the time in which we live? Before we can even get to the what must be done, how would you characterize the time we find ourselves? And the order will be from, let's go with Brother Minister Rashaad and then Brother Pastor Jonathan.
Yes, sir. Well, my dear brother, if you were aware of the last Savior's Day address of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he made us very well aware that we live in the time of Armageddon and that the Armageddon had already begun. And the truth of the matter is this: we as a community are a little late to the show. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we believe, is the voice of God, the Messiah in our midst, have told us that okay, I'm having problems with this.
It was fine until you start messing with it, Brother Shah.
Okay,
it was fine.
So he has told us that the Armageddon has begun. So what we have to do now is catch up and get ourselves ready for whatever comes with that.
Yes, sir.
You know, so that's where we are as far as time is concerned.
Yes, sir. Brother Pastor, go right ahead.
Okay, yes, thank you. I believe something very similar. Jesus tells us in the book of Matthew's gospel, around the 24th chapter, nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, earthquakes in diverse places. This is the beginning of sorrows. I think that we're in a day now that is leading up to and culminating into the end of time or the end of days. With that being said, we're in a very lawless culture and climate, a very godless culture that has no regard for the things that are wholesome, righteous, and true. And anytime you're in a state of being or a state of mind where opinion matters rather than the truth, that's very dangerous footing. And because we're an opinionated and an opinion-driven culture,
yes, sir,
it has caused great confusion, great chaos. Nobody is honoring any of the codes and ethics and laws of governance and life and love. And so because of that, we're in a very serious crisis, something that should not be taken lightly, something that requires serious attention. So thank you for this platform.
Yes, sir. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome. Brothers and sisters, we are with our brothers, Student Minister Rashaad Sharif Muhammad and Pastor Jonathan Archie of Fresno, California. And I tell you what, we're here to talk about a very serious subject. Our houses of worship are under attack. Now, what should we do about it? And I should also state for the record that I extended an invitation to appear here tonight, a member of the Orthodox Islam community, because the stabbing that happened in Paterson, New Jersey was from the masjid. And I wanted to have their voices be heard here tonight, but unfortunately they could not be present. I'd like to direct this next question specifically to Brother Pastor. Now, as I mentioned also in the introduction, Brother Pastor, most of the Muslims I know, certainly including myself, we grew up worshiping God in the church house.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up going to Sunday school. We grew up going to the church picnics and the choirs, if you will, and Easter Sunday suits. That's most of our experiences. And most of us will always call that home. There's always a sense of belonging when I visit the Black church.
Mm-hmm.
In light of the era that you just painted that's going on in the world today, could that sense of ease, could that be contributing to, for lack of a better word, a naivete and a lack of security awareness in such a dangerous time?
Believe it or not, there is a great awakening that, we'll have another conversation about evangelical faith and religion in America and how it is not only declining, but dying. And first of all, what we got to understand is that people are dissatisfied, especially Black Christians are dissatisfied with the status quo. There has been a long search. As I told you earlier, my father was a former Black Panther.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you can't get more nationalist, I think, than that, right?
Right.
Especially in America. So growing up under that banner, growing up under that mindset, under that mission to really bring dignity and respect to our communities. We know the government twisted that narrative, changed it so that we would vilify and hate ourselves. But the truth is, they were just one entity that was trying to make sure that Black families hung in there and stayed in unit. We won't go into the whole divisiveness of social welfare and how that gave incentives for Black mothers to separate their kids from their fathers, all that. So some of us grew up with that awareness. And so for us, church was never blinding. Like, we were never blindsided because we lived Black. We know what it was to be Black, right? So we weren't a part of that group who was faking the funk.
Come on.
We were the realest people. And sometimes when you are in that category, you are a minority. You are not a part of the majority opinion. I said that to say there is a move happening. There's an awakening happening where Christian brothers and sisters are coming into this knowledge and reality that we have to take control back of our spiritual identity, and not allow what white America, what white supremacy and what white privilege has done to reshape what really is rooted in an Eastern theology and philosophy.
Yes,
Christianity is, as with Judaism and Islam, it is a Middle Eastern faith and religion, and its roots are not in Europe.
Right.
And we know that, and we have not been blind to that. So there is a group that is resurging, saying, no, listen, if you're going to be a believer, part of your call of action is to speak truth to power.
Come on.
To raise the awareness. And so, yes, we're not living in darkness. Now we just have to pull together and band as brothers and sisters in faith, so that we can stop this heinous. It's really an act of hatred that is motivated, that is racially and politically motivated.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're with us here on the Rockwell Radio Show. This is DJ Rockwell. My guests tonight are Pastor Jonathan Archie of Jonathan Archie Ministries, based on the West Coast. And my brother is with us, based right here in Atlanta, Georgia, Student Minister Rashaad Muhammad. And we're talking about how we can protect our houses of worship, because we live in a serious time, ladies and gentlemen, and we want to help you, regardless of whether you worship at a church, regardless of whether you worship at a mosque, a masjid, a synagogue. We have to get ways and get information and training to you to stop the massacres happening in our places of worship. Student Minister Rashaad, this next question is going to be specifically for you.
Yes, sir.
Now, obviously, as Fruit of Islam in the nation, it's almost synonymous when you say FOI or Nation of Islam. It's almost been synonymous with security. It's often been synonymous with discipline, rigidity, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in this time. And I may not recall or know the actual pinpoint day when the FOI became front page on America's consciousness, but I do know that in 1984, and as you well know, it was that era where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan assigned us, the FOI, to stand post and secure the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson during his 1984 presidential campaign. What is it about our training that applies now in this climate more than ever?
Well, first off, I have to say, as an FOI, which is the Fruit of Islam, our basis is not just security. Our bases are to become godlike. Our training is not just for security. Our training is to become godlike. So that is our first image. that we want to portray to the world. That is where real security comes from. To be a Muslim means to be made secure.
Teach.
Right? Islam is founded in peace. Well, that peace, only peace that I can share with you is the peace of God.
Right.
So with that being the case and that being the construct, you cannot give what you do not have. We can't offer the world peace if we're not at peace. Right? We can't offer the world security if we're not being made secure.
Teach.
So the first thing, as Pastor said, we have to get control of our construct, our religious construct. And you should not want to be a part of a religion that where the God of that religion does not desire your security,
right?
Desire your protection, right? And if that is the case, then that's what we have to begin to simulate and emulate in our communities. At the end of the day, Brother Rockwell, Brother Minister James, at the end of the day, what we have to do is we're taught that we go in peace.
Listen.
We're taught that we're never the aggressor.
Right.
We're taught, see, these are the teachings that create a community of peace. And once you have a community of peace, now the caveat to that is now you have the God-given right to fight with those who fight with you.
Come on.
The reputation of the FOI, we don't have a reputation of thuggism. We don't have a reputation of gangsterism.
Right.
Because that's not our culture. Our culture is a culture of peace. But we have the God-given right to fight with those who fight with us. Now, yes, sir?
No, go. This is good. I wanted to tag into what you said. This is good.
We're here to interchange and interact. By all means, yes.
And in that, this is how you know. Brother Side of Chicago always says, how you know? Well, how you know is a foreseeing God who came to us. And we established the mosque in 1930, 1931. In our establishment, we have been doing a search procedure since our establishment.
That's right.
I don't know if you are aware, but prior to 9/11, you could walk from your curbside car to the plane.
That's right.
Not even American airports were as secure in 1930. Well, you see what I'm saying?
Indeed.
This is foresight. This is a foreseeing God. There was a time that you could come to America and you may go through a customs, but you did. If you were going domestic, you didn't have to go through the type of security that you undergo today. So this is part of the culture. This is part of when you say the training. This is part of the culture and training of the Nation of Islam is to always be watchful. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan used the word in his speech. He said, "Some pray, but some watch."
Right.
That is the culture of Islam. I want for my brother what I want for myself. Right?
Beautiful.
So this is brother Rockwell. This is what we have to get back to, not just in a Muslim, because the Messiah and the God does not belong to just the Muslims.
Right.
He is the Lord of all the worlds. He is the God of all the people, the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews who accept him. So that's what we have to get back to, that culture. We have to get back to, we don't suffer in America because we're Muslims. We don't suffer in America because we're Christian. We suffer in America because the synagogue of Satan controls our culture, and they have a culture of lying and murdering, and that is what we're feeling the effects of.
Come on now.
So listen, that's what I wanted to tag into. One of the reasons why I think I have tried and I've strove to have a very balanced theology is because when you look at all the factions of faith, right, all the offshoots, the branches of beliefs and how they came into being, the thing that makes, of course, the Nation of Islam unique on American soil is why it came into being, and the mission of causing us as God's heritage to be viewed and seen in a respected and honorable light. But here's what and the reason why I say that is, of course, because I've traveled to Muslim countries and stuff, and I've traveled to sectarian countries. I love to travel. That's part. I'm a history buff. That's part of my thing. But I can tell you this uniquely to America, and as Brother Muhammad referenced, the synagogue, the seat of Satan, sits at the helm of control. It is the manipulation and controlling of information.
Teach.
It is the media's control of information that plants into the mind of people a false narrative. Like, for example, the Nation of Islam, like the Black Panthers and any other nationalist or political movement that wanted to see the advancement of people of color, the CIA and other operatives and government agencies quickly hit the ground to reshape, to change the truth into a lie, and to cause people to look at our brothers in a negative light. It is nothing, as the minister said, it's nothing that the Nation of Islam did, but it was the narrative that America spun regarding them. And here's why we as Black people have to understand. We have to look through and see these smoke screens, because at the end of the day, we're all God's children.
Yes, sir.
And if we don't understand that, then we will play into the hands of the perpetrator, and we will play into the hands of Satan, and we will work against each other when we should be supporting each other. When you look at the race and the gender of the people that have carried out these heinous acts of violence against mosques and synagogues and churches, it has been people of the Caucasian race.
Typically, that's fact.
And male, and so, you know, if you travel to other Muslim countries, it's a different climate of love and respect the culture has. In America, we want to conquer and divide each other and see each other as being separate entities who can't get along, and that is a narrative that is solely created by the hatred of white people.
Can't say it no plainer.
You know, it's not like that in other nations. You know, and for the Black people who don't have the blessing of traveling, go to YouTube, read, do something to expand your life so you can see that.
That's right.
I mean, think about it. If our roots, if our spiritual roots are traced back to Abraham, in the sense, you know, of who we believe the father of faith, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, now from the Christian and the Jewish perspective, of course, we ascribe that relationship and connection through the bloodline of Ishmael and Isaac, right? All right, so if you go to other countries, this is really true. When I first went to Israel, right, and discovered, you know, in America, we see this picture that Arabs are attacking and fighting. I'm not saying that they don't, but you just think they're just destroying one another. But when you go there, you see them cohabitating. You see that the Arabs own most of all the land. And the Jews only own. When I was riding through the countryside, I saw more mosques than synagogues.
How about that?
You know, my point is, only in America do we paint this evil, wicked picture to cause us to misunderstand and hate each other, when the truth is, if we're born of God, you know, your spiritual reformation is unique and subjective to how you encountered God. I can't help the fact that my dad, who was a Black Panther, was at a bar and was slain by the Spirit of God. Can't deny it. It's something like Paul on the road to Damascus, right? You have those kind of encounters that you can't explain. People are around, they're witnessing, they see a phenomenon that. So when you have that kind of encounter, you know, being Christian was not solely a choice, but based on pedigree, it was a choice of observation, right? So, but with that, we did not grow up hating our Muslim brothers.
And we're going to touch that. We're going to definitely get more into that point. I only interject because we're up against the break. This is DJ Rockwell. My guest tonight, Student Minister Rashaad S from the Nation of Islam, and our brother visiting us all the way from Fresno and Los Angeles, California, Pastor Jonathan Archie. We're up against the break, and we will be right back.
What up with it, man? You already know what time it is. It's me, Young Kind of Don. I'm up in this thing.
This is Aziz, the kid Kareem, the life giving them seed. Greetings, everyone. This is Brother Anthony K. Muhammad, also known as A-Tone, the hip-hop historian.
Peace, family. What's going on? It's Brother DeBrill, Brother Mustafa, Lawsuit Productions in the building.
I am your sister, Arian Nicole. Peace, peace, peace. It's your sister, Sue Axel. You're watching the Rockwell Radio Show. You are now tuned in live to the Rockwell Radio Show. Right now, you're listening to Rockwell Radio Show.
Rockwell Radio. If you ain't listening, man, you wasting time. You on all these other stations, you need to tap in. Rockwell Radio.
You know what it is. Watch them, watch them, watch them.
I'm here with Brother Rockwell, the Rockwell Radio Show.
If you ain't in the game, you in the stand. Stop playing, man. Let's go.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet. Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We're back. This is DJ Rockwell, and I have with me two fabulous guests discussing an absolutely important subject. The subject we're covering tonight is what are we going to do to secure our places of worship? Whether you are Muslim, whether you are Jewish, whether you are Christian, there is an attack happening on our places. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke on it on April the 21st on a podcast. And just in a few moments, we're going to play an excerpt of that message and get the response of our guest. I'd like to also say real quick, as you just saw in the commercial, you can hear the minister 24/7 on Final Call Radio. Go to your app, download it today. And if you're also down with some conscious hip hop, you can hear that also 24/7 on the YouTube channel called the NOI Chronicles. That's what we do here, and we're here for you. This is DJ Rockwell. Let's get back to the conversation. Now, on this half of the conversation, I want to start talking about, we're talking about the time in the first half. And in the second half, I want to focus on what can be done. So again, we cover the time, so let's examine what can be done, or as the minister put it, what must be done. And I'll put this to both of you. As you said, Brother Pastor, you are a student of history. I also am a fan of history. My father, may God be pleased with him, was also a very self-aware, and he was the one that first made me fall in love with being a black man. Mm-hmm. Long live James.
Yes,
Morgan.
Yes.
That applause for you.
He was a king. Yeah.
My father, and he bought me in fact, not just one, but several books about Black history. One of which I studied, I learned about a group called the Deacons of Defense. Now, the reason that I cite them tonight is, although they contain, the title contains the word deacons, I learned, Brother Pastor, Brother Minister Sharif, that Brother Rashaad, that they weren't necessarily a religious group. They was about that life. They were the first armed Black resistant group in America based out of Louisiana. And they were known as the Deacons of Defense and Justice. I would like to ask you both, are we at a time now that these kinds of entities need to be recreated and reintroduced to Black America?
Can I jump in first, and then the minister, you can take it, only because wow, that's loaded.
Yes, sir.
You want so this is my challenge. Because of the culture we live in, we don't have the freedom of self-patrol and self-expression, right? If that were to happen, it would then be viewed as civil unrest and characterized as a civil war, according to the main white establishment.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then we have to ask ourselves, how effective will it be if we are met with resistance and violence by the powers that be? You know, is it just enough to revel in the idea of it, or will we have the freedom to really execute safety and protection for our places of worship? I think, to me, you know, there are other things outside external influences that will try to hinder and impede, because as I mentioned with the Black Panther, and you mentioned I never heard of them. What are they called? The
Deacons of Defense.
But you know, my father worked out of the Northern California, Oakland. I guess they call them set, if we characterize them as gangs now. But you know, I at the time I wasn't born. I came a few years later, around 73. But and with him telling me the narrative and the story, part of the reason why I think he grew weary and tired was because he had to choose the safety and well-being of his family, or being a martyr. Because again, you know, and we currently, you know, you all are aware of what's happening in Sudan. I mean, there's so many different things happening, skirmishes and factions and wars and things happening globally. The answer is we do need a form of protection, but a self-proclaimed militia, I just don't know if it will be allowed to do what it needs to do. I guess that's how.
Sure. And for the record, for those who are watching the Rockwell Radio Show right about now, we at the Rockwell Radio Show, we are not advocating picking up a gun. We are not advocating that. We are just simply raising a question of the solutions that are on the table and what has happened before us and what is in front of us. Brother Minister Rashaad, if you want to respond to that thought.
Yes, sir, I would. You know, again, our protection, our real protection is God.
Say it.
Okay. So do I think that we're at a point where we need to weaponize our people? I can't say I agree with that. I'm going to tell you why.
Right.
As long as we are victims of Caucasian assimilation.
Right.
Which is steeped in white supremacy. So the black on black crime that you see is a byproduct of the Caucasian assimilation and white supremacy, right?
Right.
So we go out and we arm all these brothers who have yet to be
disciplined.
Well, not just disciplined. I mean, it takes more than just discipline when you're talking about safety and security. I gotta love my brother. In the movie 300, when the young man wanted to be a part of the army, he said, brother, if you can't protect your brother, then you can't be a part of this army.
Say it.
That's good.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us the weapon of unity is the greatest weapon that we have. Our people, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hebrews, whomever, if we united, then the idea and the thought power of that would be just as powerful.
Right.
What's the use of arming everyone and don't nobody know how to shoot? Right now, the state of Georgia, the state of Texas, the state of Tennessee, they all have loosened their gun laws, and that I don't know if you've been around Atlanta, but everybody and their mother carry a gun in Atlanta now.
That's right.
Well, how much gun education is being taught with that?
Right.
How much training is being offered with this loosening of the gun law? So you have, anytime our open enemy gives us a solution, we have to look closely into
Right. It's a setup. Yeah.
It may be something behind that. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we don't need that. When right now, we don't even have enough land, enough farm to call our own that we need to protect with arms.
Yeah.
right? So what are we going to do? Eventually, those arms will wind up turning them on ourselves.
Right.
But that's not the solution. The solution is let us get rooted in love, and love for one another. And the value, when my brother can see the value in his brother, he can see the God in his brother, he won't kill that.
Right.
So let that be the message. Let that be the weapon right now. There may come a time when we, get into something like that, but this ain't the time for that. I don't believe. I have not heard the Messiah call for that, so I can't advocate for that.
I concur. Brother Rashaad, yeah, I concur with that. Jesus talks about the Beatitudes. Paul talks about the fruits of the Spirit. I think what there is a lack of is transformation, regeneration.
Yes.
There's a lack of the fruit of the Spirit, the fruit of God, the exemplification of righteousness and love and truth. And it's kind of, if you watch The Karate Kid, it's the Mr. Miyagi effect. One discipline, I forget what it's called, whatever that training house was, they were more violent prone, right? And so they wanted to be trained in the way that everybody else.
Cobra Kai. It was Cobra Kai.
Yeah, Cobra Kai. So oppositions of Cobra Kai. Thank you for the research.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our producer Dave C. He had to pop in for that real quick.
Yeah. So they were disgruntled and disenfranchised because they weren't being trained in a violent, physical way, right? Because they thought that's how you fight power. You fight back with that kind of power with what you're met with, right? That level of resistance. And Mr. Miyagi, in the first movie, wax on, wax off, right? And so Dave was kind of irritated. Why are you teaching me these principles to seemingly had nothing to do with him executing in the match? But later we understand the story was he was teaching him principles and foundation. He was teaching him how to be in control of him. His body was a weapon. His hands were a weapon. And if you don't know how to control your weapon, then you are chaos. You are a disaster. You will not only will you cause destruction, you emanate destruction, right? So I think it's the same as Minister Rashaad said. It's we have to get back to embodying the teachings of God, and for us Christians, the teachings of Christ. Here's my indictment. Do you not know that there are people perpetrating a fraud, calling themselves Christians, but have never fully embraced and embodied the teachings of Christ?
Yes, sir.
Say that.
And what happens is when you do that, you give a false narrative. So we have presented to the world a false narrative that makes people can only form an opinion on the fruit they see.
Right.
Right. So, this is why we can have a conversation of love and dialogue and discussion, because we understand what the fruit of righteousness is. We understand that God is love, and if God is in us, then love is the expression, essence that we will walk in, and how we treat each other. And I'm just so irritated with ignorance and foolishness, man, because it's like they're the ones getting prime time. They're the ones with the platform, right? They're the ones with the attention, right? But they're not embodying the truth. So I agree wholeheartedly. There are going to be moments where we will end up as a casualty of war. In the civil rights era, when my dad marched with Dr. King in the 60s. This is funny too, and this is true because it was the best of both worlds. He was young, and he was on one of those freedom buses, right? He always told us this story. He was mad that Dr. King was like nonviolent. He said, "What?" He grew up in Louisiana, and he actually had to flee Louisiana because he was going to be lynched. So my father lived a very real life. His response was, let's meet it with aggression.
How about that?
Because he experienced the pain, the trauma of racism, But Dr. King and others were telling him, no, that's not how we're going to fight this fight. And as we saw, of course, and this other thing that people don't talk about is how Malcolm X and Dr. King came together.
Fact.
And others. Fact. In the Nation of Islam. See, but the news media, again, they recharacterized the narrative to make it seem like we're against each other. We're each other's enemy. And that's the devil. That's the seat and synagogue of Satan.
And that's exactly why we are here today. And I'm so glad that you are watching and glad that you are here with us. Matter of fact, if you're still here, go ahead and put a thumbs up in the chat. Go ahead and put a fire emoji in the chat. And above all, go ahead and hit that like and share button. Go ahead and hit that tag. Tag somebody that needs to hear this information, because we're about to give away some valuable stuff. And of course, subscribe today. We're almost at our 1,000 subscription mark, and we can get there with your help. Go ahead, Brother Rashaad.
Pastor, I love you, but we're not going to be casualties. We're not even putting that out there. No. We're going to be the Muslim soldiers. We're going to be the Christian soldiers.
Yes.
With the God and his power behind us, we're not going to be the casualties. Those
Yes.
aggressors.
Yes, thank you
the
for that clarification. Let me thank you. Thank you, because that was open-ended. You know, when they used hoses when we would march across various streets and bridges, and some ended up being beaten and brutally attacked. That's what I meant by,
I understand.
Indeed.
But I'm glad you said, brother. I'm glad you made that disclaimer, because we are triumphant. That's right.
Yes, sir. But going into war, we have to go into war with a certain mentality.
Yeah.
Right. And what our Christian soldiers and Muslim soldiers need to understand is this: God has always called his people to war.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read the Bible time and time again, and I've saw Joshua go to war.
Yeah.
Right? Saw Moses go to war. So the people of Christianity have to understand, because we're not accepting, again, the white supremacist concept that we're not going to fight back. That's what they're hoping, that we won't fight back. That's what Dylan Roof was hoping. See, Dylan Roof, young white boy, goes into a church of mostly black elders and shoot 9 people.
Right.
Soft
Who could not defend themselves. Right.
Oh, we lost the time.
What I would challenge Mr. Roof to do is, let's go on the flip side of the street.
Right.
Where every young brother over there got a gun. If you really want to kick off, well, you go over there and start you leave our elderly children and women alone.
Say it.
Really want to start.
Say it.
That's what I'm saying to you is, we have to be mindful of how we go into this Armageddon fight, because it is a war.
Yeah,
and
it
when
is.
you're in war, you have to be war ready. You have to be war conscious. You have to operate with the urgency of war. So we're not going to be no casualty in no way, shape, or form. We're going to bring the casualties in this war.
Come on, now let me jump in and ask. I want to come back to our pastor for a moment. And I know it's not fair, obviously, to expect you to represent the entirety of the black church with this question. But I just want to know your personal thoughts. If the black church parishioners showed up tomorrow at Sunday service, let's say it's Saturday, and they showed up at Sunday service tomorrow to find a metal detector at the door, what do you think the general response would be?
So let me tell you this, boy, that was a very poignant question. Our church in Fresno was vandalized 10 times. We have a group of elderly women that have been, the same group, God bless, have been praying in our church for 50 years every week, never missed a week. To make sure that they didn't feel like they were going into a prison, the elders asked me, do we put up bars? Do we put up a metal gate? Do we put up this, or do we put up that? And at the time, my family, who's a part of the council, they were like, no. My sister's like, no, we don't want the church feeling like they're going to prison. Even though we're tired of being hit and vandalized, we still want to make sure that people come to church feeling that they are free and liberated and protected and safe. So I guess the way I would respond to that, and I also want to piggyback on to what Minister Rashaad said. It's true. It's the presentation. People know in the area and community, they know if you're strong or not. They know if you're vulnerable or not. He talked about the gunman. I believe that was in was it Charleston?
Yes, sir.
Who shot up the Methodist church? They were all elderly people, right? So he knew who was in there. He knew when to go in there. So that was a coward move. So yeah, I think if we come up with again what my brother said, strategy. the Mr. Miyagi effect was a certain type of strategy. When you go into war, we got to have a strategy. I think that should be the conversation. I think the conversation ought to be strategy driven. The tribe of Issachar knew what Israel should do in the time of war. They were a highly skilled, highly trained group of men that operated in high intelligence of warfare, right, and strategy. I think what we need to do is have a strategy of defense that, again, shows solidarity in our strength of us being united. I think unity will always be unity and love will always be two of the strongest weapons against the enemy.
So just so I'm clear on your answer, I want to make sure that I'm taking the right takeaway. So you think, and again, I'm just asking you to speculate. Do you think that there'd be a little bit of resistance to that?
Yeah.
Pushback?
I went the long way around, but yes.
No worries. Okay. And I want to come to you, Brother Minister Rashaad. When we come into a Muhammad mosque in America, no matter whether you're in New York or Los Angeles, no matter where you're in Atlanta or Washington, D.C., you will experience what we call a check procedure. When you invite a guest, Brother Rashaad, who have never experienced that, they come to worship God, next to us, but realize, hey, what's it mean? You gotta take everything out of my pocket. When you first started bringing guests to hear the word, what was their response to that procedure? And how did you explain it and make them comfortable with it?
Well, first off, nobody wants their space invaded, right? But when you know that you're going to be in a safe environment, I think it's more palatable. When you know I'm not doing this to invade your space, I'm doing this to actually protect you and the other practitioners and the other guests. I think they take that a little bit better. Even if right now we took the construct of heaven that most people accept, right? God put a gate on heaven.
Say that.
Okay. If we read the Bible in Genesis, it says that when Adam was put out of the garden, there was a sentry put there at the gate.
Yep, with swords, yes.
With swords, flaming swords. So what I'm saying is we have to sometimes change our perspective of what the reality of religion looks like. And God, the children and the women in these places of worship are too valuable to let anything happen to them. So when we go in the spirit of protection, I think the people will accept that. I really think it comes as a relief in a time when you can't turn on the news and not see somebody being shot to death, stabbed to death.
Yes, sir.
We had an active shooter here in Atlanta just 2 days ago.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm saying to you is, I think people will accept it, and they will learn to accept it better when they feel that they can come somewhere in this peaceful as paradise. That's what they really want.
Yeah, can I add now we do have security at both of our churches. One patrols the parking lot. They are a veteran. They are licensed and armed. The other one just got his licensing. Now, the one up north in Fresno is fairly new. The one in LA, he's been with us for about 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Because LA is a different market. Fresno is a sleeping city that's just now coming into some things, and so we kind of had to ramp up. And but it is something that we probably will look more into. I will say this, and I feel almost like I have to be a voice, a bridge. Unfortunately, in America, and again, this is, I think, one of the travesties and unique challenges that our Muslim brothers and sisters face, is the hatred that is cloaked under the guise of Christianity. Not right now so much from Black people, but from white aggressors. One of the reasons why, again, the picture is painted as the FOI being militant and being and as you all know very true and very well, that is not the case, but that's the narrative that the mainstream media and mainstream evangelicals have tried to paint, and that narrative was created and has been controlled by white people. And I think what's important is that we say that because there are a lot of Black Christians who love God, who love our Muslim brothers and sisters as well, but we don't have a voice. We're not, or let me say different. We are not the voice, right? Because we are in our own silo. And so there have to be moments and times where there's a coming together, a common place, a meeting ground where we say, no, that is not what we espouse. That is not what we believe. That is not what we preach and teach.
Absolutely.
It's not who we are. It's not how
Right.
we act. You know what I'm saying? Because it creates this resentment and hostility that does not need to exist. And I said that because most of the hatred, see, mosques probably have to be more concerned than churches in some regard, depending on, and this is crazy, depending on the area they are in, and it's solely based on race. It's not like based on I have a difference of belief, so to speak, because if I was blue or green and Muslim and I had an altercation, it's wicked and deranged white people, right, who are going into these places, shooting up and taking innocent lives. And so I just did not want that to speak for all of Christians. I don't.
Okay, now I got your point. Now
that's what I was trying to make. You know what I'm saying? That behavior does not speak to who and what I espouse and believe as a Black African American man and male in these Americas.
Understood.
A Christian. So and that's important. That's why I came on the show.
Okay, yes, and again, welcome. You're tuning into the Rockwell Radio Show. Brother Rashaad, you want to make one point before we close?
Yes, Pastor, I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan have offered the invitation to all churches, to all mosques, to all synagogues, that come and receive the same training that the FOI receive. We meet every Monday night, and we train spiritually, defense, and we train in physical defense. But we do this and we offer this to the world now. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is saying, well, come to us. We have a pretty good track record of protecting our temples and mosques. Let us show every member of the church how to do it, male and female.
Right.
Good.
So it does. So that responsibility does not go on to one or two officers. That responsibility goes on everybody who's vested into the church. I think everybody, all of it, just like in Israel, all the citizens have to go through some form of military training.
Yeah.
And in the nation of Islam, it stands
Thank
true.
you for that.
All of us do some type of training because this is our heaven.
Yeah.
This is our community that we're going to protect. And everybody should put all hands on deck.
Listen, I thank you. I'm going to reach out to you guys on that because I think that is a vital piece of information. Brothers, I have to excuse myself. I have something else that I have to attend to. Please forgive my
no worries. Before
when I tell you I've been blessed, thank you. Sincerely, thank you. And I definitely want to be in touch and have you all do some things on our show. And thank you for the olive branch and the invitation.
We're honored by your presence, and we'd love to anytime. Before you go, please just tell our viewers where they can follow you, find you, and support you.
Okay, I'll use the radio station because social media is cool too, but BelieveRadioFresno.com, 24 hours of inspiration, gospel music. Believe Radio Fresno or Believe Radio Jonathan at Gmail is how you get a hold of me. You can also follow me on social media, Jonathan Archie. Type it in, it'll populate. You'll see my face, and you can click and follow us. Brothers, oh my God, this has been cathartic. And again, I'm going to follow up on that training. I think that is that's God sent. And so thank you for the conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You're welcome again. Let's not make it the last time. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, that is Pastor Jonathan Archie of Jonathan Archie Ministries. Thank you, sir. And we're a few minutes over, and I really wanted to get into this excerpt from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So now, if it's all right, I'll just play it, Brother Rashaad, and get your response. We'll close out.
Oh, please, brother. Always want to hear from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
And I hope this works. It worked during the test. Let's try it now.
When Satan's power to deceive has been broken. So, beloved, we have to protect the houses of worship. Don't act as though you're not in a hostile environment when you know that someone may come and create a nuisance on your post.
Let's stop right there because we're out of time, but we want to keep it going. If you would just respond to that brief excerpt. I wish we had more time, but I don't want to keep everybody longer. But if you just give us a brief response to that brief word by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. I would have to say that I believe the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to be the Messiah in our midst.
Yes, sir.
I believe the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to be the voice of God amongst us. And if he says that we have to identify the reality in which we live and prepare and act as such, then that's what we should be finding ourselves. That's what we should find ourselves doing. We should be preparing ourselves to protect our places of worship, and not just mosques. Our Christian brothers and sisters are suffering, and we should be there to aid them and protecting them because they are our brothers and sisters at the end of the day. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that every time you see a black man or woman, for that matter, you're looking at God. So he didn't say only the ones that come to the mosque. He said every time. So I think we should heed the call of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and we should start getting busy.
In closing, Brother Minister Rashaad, please share with our viewers here on the Rockwell Radio Show where we can find, support your work, the work of our student regional minister, Brother Abdul Sharif Muhammad. Where can we find and support both of your works here in the Southern region?
Praise be to God. You could always Google NOI.org, and you can find any mosques throughout the country on NOI.org. In Atlanta, you could simply Google Muhammad's Mosque number 15 or God's Ark, and that is where the 10,000 Fearless headquarters is at the moment. You could that address for the God's Ark is 3638 Campbellton Road. That's Atlanta, Georgia 30331. And we welcome all of you to come and be a part, learn what we have to offer, and take it back. Anything of good that we have, take it back to your community.
Brother Rashaad, we love you. We thank you here on the Rockwell Radio Show, my brother, as always.
Love you, brother. Inshallah, see you soon.
Come on. You're watching the Rockwell Radio Show, and once again, we want to protect our houses of worship. Brother just gave out ways that we can do it. Hopefully, some of the information that was shared on this show today can help you in your place of worship. Take it back, study it, listen, and if you have questions, reach out to our brother, and he can get us to where we need to be to make sure that you have a safe place to pray. Again, this is DJ Rockwell, and we will see y'all next week. We are out of here.
Now, if you got past all of that, you might as well keep on rocking with us. So come on, everybody, let's go. Let's go. Radio show, y'all. The Rockwell Radio Show. The Rockwell Radio Show, y'all. The Rockwell Radio Show. The Rockwell Radio Show, y'all. The Rockwell Radio Show. The Rockwell Radio Show, y'all. The Rockwell Radio Show. Rockwell Radio Show. That means you too. Rockwell Radio Show. The Rockwell Radio Show. Leave it like Rockwell Radio Show. Subscribe now. Rockwell Radio Show, y'all. The Rockwell Radio Show. The Rockwell Radio Show. The Rockwell Radio Show. Come on now, y'all. Yeah. It was a dope episode, man. Come on, man. Top tripping.